to introduce our next chair, Arsh Faisal, from Lexington High School, based in Lexington, MA, USA.
Thank you. I'll be introducing the next speaker, Dr. Zareena Amtul. She is a member at the Department of Chemistry and Biochemistry at the University of Windsor in Canada. Her research focuses on chemical biology and medicinal bioinorganic chemistry, alongside the development of virtual laboratory modules to enhance bioinformatics education. Dr. Zareena, take it away.
Uh, Thank you, Asset, for the opportunity to present my work. Since I teach biotechnology entrepreneurship to the students, and I realized that students are not taught the hands-on experience when they join in the workforce. And for this, I decided to develop a toolbox for the students, which toolbox that I use as a part of the exercises during my course when I teach during fall. And that toolbox consisting of different exercises, outlets, resources, websites, links, activities that empowers a student to learn the entrepreneurship tools. The word entrepreneurship is very misunderstood. I'm not too sure if you're also seeing that toolbar that I'm seeing. Okay, this is it is one of the very most misunderstood or misused words nowadays, especially. Everybody is doing anything that has to do something with money making. It is called entrepreneurship. If you ask students that what they mean by entrepreneurship, this is what they come up with. The entrepreneurship, literally, the dictionary meaning is that it's something new that a person is establishing as an opportunity to make money. It has to be a novel or innovative way of making money. However, nowadays, anybody who opens a salon, they call them some entrepreneur. Somebody is a dress designer, they call them some entrepreneur. But this is not the actual definition. However, the way it is taken completely fine. The course that I designed consisting of teaching students that what constitute an entrepreneurship. For entrepreneurship, the first person you need is the leader, the entrepreneur that takes away and lead the entire adventure. Then you look for the idea that you want to market. Once you decide on the idea, then the next you go for intellectual property, applying for IP to get that idea patent under your name. Afterwards, you design or decide a business model that you want to use to maximize your profit and minimize your losses. Then you register your company, you decide and choose the team members. Then you do market research. Market research is also a part of the idea selection, but here you do detailed market research, find out your market segment. Once you know the market segment and your customer and the consumers who are going to use your product that you're working on developing, afterwards, we work on developing a business plan, give pitch presentations to the funders. Once we get the funding, we can also go to the industry partners who are willing to collaborate with us, who are working on the same ideology as us. And after we get the funding, the next step is to develop the product further and get the approvals, regulatory approvals, as well as ethical approvals from the concerned organizations. And then scaling up the production further. Once you scaled up your production, you're ready to launch it. Uh, and then you go to different outlets, advertise your product that you have made so that the people can recognize you. The more they recognize you, the good reputation you have. So when you launch your company on the stock exchange, then the majority of the people go and they buy their stock of your company. So this is what we actually teach the student through this toolbox or through this entrepreneurship course. I don't have enough time and I understand the time constraint, but I'll try my best to go over all of these points in a little bit more detail as much as the time allows. The entrepreneur, first of all, I teach a student that they have to learn to think having a very broader imagination. The more imaginative they are, the more creative thinker they are. And instead of looking at the problems, they look at those problems as the opportunities. And then I give the example of Alexander Fleming, that how accidentally he discovered the penicillin antibiotic when he observed that zone around a bacterial colony that was produced by a fungal contamination, and that actually restricted the growth of the bacterial culture. Why he was able to make this uh, discovery? Because he did not let it go unnoticed. Then the next, because it's the biotechnology entrepreneurship means that anything which is happening in the health to better the health of the people. For example, the health biotechnology that includes therapeutics and medicines, the agriculture biotechnology that includes the genetically modified crops that we have, or making the production of the organic crops better. Then we have environmental biotechnology that includes, for example, pollution concern. Then we have animal biotechnology, where we work on the animal as a source of food, as and also in research some of the animals are used. All those types of biotechnology can be looked at depending on what is your um, expertise and what is your focus. The idea evaluation, all this starts with the entrepreneur that I already explained. Then we go to the idea evaluation. What do you want to do? For example, if you want to do something in the health biotechnology, our source of information, what is happening in the health sector, or what is the thing that is revolutionizing the health biotechnology or the medicinal side of the healthcare system. We go for research papers published by the academic scientist, and from there we choose the idea that we find goes with aligned with our objectives and goals, to better people's life. Next, we look for the market potential of that idea, and once we find out, yes, there is a genuine need of that product. And the third factor is people factor mean the people that you're working with, people that you'll be dealing with in this adventure of developing a drug from the scratch. So once you have chosen an idea, the next step is to apply for intellectual property, to patent that idea, that compound, that technique, that technology, that procedure, or a diagnostic kit or a medical device in your name, so that you are allowed to go and do the interventions, develop it further. And there are different types of IPs available. As I said, unfortunately, I won't be able to go in much detail. Usually, I explain them in more detail. For example, the patent, usually we apply for patent for the medical research happening in the health biotechnology that it lasts for around 20 years or so. Then their trademarks is a type of IP, industrial design. For example, if you look at these bottles here, on the right side, they have some curvy structure. So you can even apply for patent that nobody should use this curvy structure for their bottles or their packaging, because you have a IP right for it. Then copyrights is a form of intellectual property, trade secrets, as well as licenses. In some cases, they are considered a type of intellectual property. So once you decide this is the idea that you want to work upon, you communicate with the academic scientist, and then you go for writing different agreements. But this all happens through technology transfer offices. So all the universities, they have these TTO offices stationed in their campuses, and people who are there, experience and learn it, and they know how to help you with the technology transfer from the academic scientist to you as an entrepreneur, because this is what you want to develop as as to launch your biotech company or to launch that product. And there are different types of agreements available. Sometimes you just take only the material from them, sometimes you take the idea from them, sometimes you do collaborate with the academic scientists, providing them money and then help them to do the clinical testing. And so depending on what you want to do and what type of agreement is between you and the academic scientist, we go for different sort of agreements. I've highlighted them as MTA, CDA, SRA, CTA, and CRADA, CRADA. Once you have run into an agreement with the academic scientist, next you decide what model you want to have for your business to maximize your profits and minimize your losses. And for this, a number of business models are out there. I'll talk about only a few of them. For example, either you can decide about having your business model completely virtual. Completely virtual means you operate everything virtually. You have no physical office. You have all of your employees are collaborating and working and communicating virtually. In the
Dr.
second,
Amtul,
this
sorry to interrupt you. Are you showing the slides? Because I cannot see the slides moving.
okay, let me see. My slides are not moving.
Yes, to me, it's not moving.
Is it moving now?
No.
Okay, 1 second. Let me unshare and share my screen.
Okay.
Can you see my screen now? Is it moving or not moving?
Not moving. Yeah, not moving.
What is happening? I think one other speaker was also complaining about it. 1 second, let me see.
Can you, when you share the screen, can you share the entire desktop? That way, if you do the set presentation mode, it could probably be enhanced, just as a suggestion. So don't select the PowerPoint or the slide, but instead try to select the entire desktop.
Okay, I did. Can you see it now?
No.
Can you no, not yet. Okay, I try to
You're
share
still
the entire
selecting
screen.
the PowerPoint. Instead of selecting the PowerPoint, try to select the entire desktop.
I did that. I did
And
that.
then
I shared
you
the,
go into the slide presentation mode on the PowerPoint.
Is it moving right now? No? Yes?
No.
No? Okay. So I shared the entire desktop rather than the PowerPoint.
And then on the PowerPoint, you have to select the slide presentation mode.
I did that. I did that and it's still not working. But let me see. Let me unshare and share again. 1 second.
Yeah,
now can you see the screen moving?
I guess so.
Is it moving?
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry about that. Sorry. Let me just go through briefly from the beginning so that, just in case. In fact, what I was talking about, perhaps what I have mentioned so far, you can take it as a pre-log. So I was just talking about, like here I teach a student how to be a biotech entrepreneur. Biotech entrepreneur means that how the pharmaceutical companies are established, how the biotech companies are established, and how they market the drugs. Usually, people think it is the government that takes the responsibility of making medicines and marketing them. Government does regulation for the profession or for that part of the money making business, but usually these are the individuals who own the companies. But nobody can randomly just get up one day and then decide, I want to market the drugs this and this and so and so, and I will make that much money. Though there are certain regulations that they have to follow. And these biotech companies, the owners who own these companies, they have to have a passion for it. And that's why we call them entrepreneurs. It's called biotech entrepreneurship. And then I go through the steps, you will get a better idea of how this entrepreneurship works. So I was just talking about this. The word entrepreneurship nowadays is a very misused word. Everybody who's doing any random business, they just call them some entrepreneur. The dictionary definition of entrepreneurship is something that you're doing that nobody has done before. You are making money using a process or procedure that nobody has used before, or you are selling something that nobody has done before. So this is the dictionary meaning of entrepreneurship. But the way it is used nowadays, it has become a kind of, common assumption and common knowledge that, anybody is doing any business, they're calling this some entrepreneur. And when I ask a student a question about what entrepreneurship is, these are the, preconceived notions that they have. Sometimes they say that, I need an MBA to become an entrepreneur. It's very complicated. I need to millions of dollars to become an entrepreneur. The surprising thing about entrepreneurship is that you don't have to spend a single penny from your pocket. There are organizations out there who will help you with your passion to develop something that is going to benefit the humankind. And I will show you the steps that how does it work. Initially, we need entrepreneur, the leader who leads the entire adventure. Then they should have an idea behind this. Then they apply for intellectual property. I'll go through all these terminologies and the steps that I'm showing one by one in a little bit more detail. But here I'm just giving you a brief overview. So once you have IP, then you decide a business model, you establish or register your company, you pick on your team members, sometimes volunteers, sometimes you pay them, you do market research for the idea that you already have chosen, whether it is going to give you money or not. Are there customers for your idea in the market or not? Next, you write a business plan. That business plan you write so that you present to the funders, or so that they can give you money. These are the funders who invest in your adventure, and that what you money use to develop your idea further and then market that product. And funders, they actually invest in it. Invest mean they want some profit out of it that you are able to by the time you are done developing the product. So sometimes you partner with your collaborators with the same goal and objectives. Once you get money, you develop your product further, develop the prototype. Along the way, you get approval from the regulatory bodies and the ethical approval from the concerned organizations. Scale up your product, launch it using different outlets, and finally you list your company in the stock exchange. When you list your company in a stock exchange, I will show you examples how just in few hours companies were able to raise billions of dollars. And this is the time when the investors who invested in your company, they take their share and they leave your company, and then you become the sole owner of your company. This is the success of the biotechnology entrepreneurship. And I will just go through these steps one by one. Entrepreneur, as I mentioned, I asked the student to have that creative edge to learn how to imagine things, and then how to imagine the problems not as problems, but to look for opportunities. Look at those problems as an opportunity for you to solve that problem. And I give the example of Alexander Fleming, how he discovered penicillin antibiotic. When he came back from a vacation, and he noticed a zone of inhibition around the bacterial colony because of the fungal growth which was contaminating the petri dish. And then from he made the observation, he did not let it go unnoticed, and through this observation, he developed the antibiotic. There are different types of biotechnology. Health biotechnology, talking about mostly medicines. Agriculture biotechnology, talking about mostly crops. Environmental biotechnology, for example, pollution, oil, the resources that we are depleting gradually, we talk about that. Then animal biotechnology, where we talk about the welfare of animals, how animals can be consumed as food or is in research. The idea we get usually from the established scientists. Established scientists, they publish their findings, the research in the research papers, journals, in the conferences where they present their work. And usually the entrepreneurs or the owners of those biotech companies who are planning to looking for new products for their companies, they attend those conferences, and they if they find out the idea is valid, the team behind the idea is having credibility, and the product they are proposing, it is having a market potential. Usually they go and communicate with those people through the TTO offices. And the ones they agree on having the idea from the academic scientist, and academic scientist agrees to share their idea with the entrepreneur, then the entrepreneur applies for the intellectual property right. It's called IP. There are different types of IP. Patent, usually the most common one, trademarks, industrial designs. If you see these curvy lines on these bottles, these curvy lines, if it is your design, you can have a property right for it. And nobody would be allowed to copy this design for their packaging. Copyrights comes under the intellectual property IP trade secrets. Sometimes the confidential information is somebody's sharing with you. This also comes under intellectual property, and the licenses sometimes are also considered as the IP, one sort of IP. So, once you decide and you talk to the academic scientists and they agree to exchange their findings with you, and they let you continue with their discovery, then you have to talk to the TTO offices, technology transfer offices, which are stationed in all the university campuses. Those people in those offices, they are experienced in helping you draft an agreement between you and the academic scientist. And depending on what you are having the agreement for, they will let you know which agreement is good for you. Is there SRA, MTA, CREDA, CTA, and there are many more other agreements. For example, if you're only collaborating with the academic scientists to let them go through the clinical trials, you will go for CTA. If you're just sharing only the materials, then it is called material transfer agreement. If you are sponsoring their research, you said them, tell them that, do develop the product yourself. We will fund your research, then it's called SRA. So depending on what type of arrangement is between you and the academic scientist, a team of academic scientists, we decide to go for those agreements. Once all these things are done, IP is done, idea has been chosen, the TT offices have been involved, you have decided upon the agreement. The next step is to choose the business model, how you want to market that product. And there are a number of options available. For example, either you just establish your company virtually. Virtually means you do all the operations virtually. It's called FIPCO model, FIPCO model. This is a very latest model. Initially, if some of you who you are here for more than quarter a century, then then if somebody's or before COVID even, if a business is being operated only virtually, the first thing comes to our mind is the fraud business, right? Until they have a physical presence, they have a physical office, the people that you can talk to. If they don't have it, then we used to consider those business as fraud. But now after COVID, many businesses have transitioned to the only virtual model, because this is the most effective way of making money. You will save a lot of money on renting and having a physical property, having too many employees, somebody to answer the phone calls and this and that, right? So this is the virtual model called FIPCO model. Some of the companies, they are operated in the FIPNet model. FIPNet model is a mixture of virtual and the in-person. In this model, these companies, they have some of the operations done virtually, and some of the operations they outsource them to different organizations. For example, they do sales and marketing by themselves, but manufacturing of the product they outsource. They get the regulatory approvals, like for example, or the paperwork, they take care of themselves. But for clinical trials, they outsource it. Similarly, for animal testing, they outsource it. Then there is one more model which is called RIPCO business model. These companies, they say we just want to do only R&D, research and development. That's it. We don't want to spend money and energy and efforts to produce that product on a larger scale, right? So these companies, they do R&D work either for the other companies or for the academic scientist. Or there is a drug repositioning model. This also called drug repurposing, where you use a drug for one clinical condition, but that drug can also be repositioned for another clinical condition, right? So this is some of the companies, they based on this model, that they just look at the already established regulated and approved drugs and try to look for the an alternate use for that drug. Some of the companies, for example, they work on it's called platform instrument business model. So what they do, they make, for example, the centrifuge machine, as well as they make tubes for those machines. Their centrifuge machine is relatively cheaper as compared to all other machines available in the market. And the scientists end up buying those machines. However, for their machines, only the tubes made by their company work in those machines, right? And those tubes are expensive, right? So usually this type of model, you don't make money over selling your units, this machine, but you make money off selling these tubes or the chips that fit into the machines. So this is called the platform instrument model, and there are many more of them. And unfortunately, due to time constraint, I cannot go over all of them. Once you decide the business model, next is to register your company. There are different ways or names under which you can establish your company. You can perhaps be the sole owner of your company under sole proprietary business registration. You can establish your company as S corporation, where you can have as many as 100 shareholders. You can establish your company as C corporation. All these options, they have certain pros and cons depending on what you are looking for, how many people are there, what is the objective and purpose of your company, the reason you want to establish your company. You choose wisely which company you want to go for. For example, LLC company, we as an entrepreneur, you cannot register your company as LLC company. LLC companies are the companies which collect pension, for example, from the employees of different organizations. So those companies, they establish themselves as LLC. Similarly, there are some cooperative companies, non-profit organizations. So depending on what is your objective and goals, you establish your company under which, register your company under that name. So once you have registered your company, the next step is to do the market search for your product. The product that you have decided to work upon, you have to find out the segmentation, that which consumer society or community is going to buy your product. And there are different ways of doing the segmentation of your market. One of them is geographically. For example, if you're working on anti-malarial drugs in North America, the chances of buying people anti-malarial drug in North America is very low. Why? Because people here don't suffer from malaria, right? Similarly, if you're working on Alzheimer's disease in a country where the life expectancy is very short, and people do not usually develop Alzheimer's, because Alzheimer's is a disease of old age, then your drug, the chances of being purchased by the consumer over there is very low, right? So depending on the geographic location, you decide which product you want to work upon. Then the demographics basis, that you decide who are your customers. It includes based on age, whether are you making drugs for the problems that are faced by gender basis. Family status also matters. Educational level of the person matters. What is the income range of the people that you want to sell your drug or your medicine or your product or your device or your diagnostic kit to, right? And the last one is the segmentation based on behavior. And if I share this with you, as it's a funny example, but this might help to explain that, if you know that, what is the criteria based on a certain population decide to buy certain product. Though this segmentation is a very difficult one to get the information about, however, this is the most effective one. If you understand the psychographic behavior of your consumer or the market segment, then you can design, or you can, cater your product according to that, and then the chances of buying it will be higher by the particular segment of the market. And then after you have done your market research, you know which segment that you're targeting, who are your customers or consumers. Next step is to write a business plan. Why? Because you don't have the money yet. You are just doing research that can be done relatively with very few resources. When you have to write a business plan, there are different ways you can present your business plan, and or the idea that you're working upon, or you can market your idea. The many ways, I just talk about here three. So either you communicate your idea to other people through elevator pitches, which should not be more than 10 to 30 seconds long. Then imagine in 30 seconds you have to convey a potential funder what actually you are doing, and it should not be more than 30 seconds, and that's why it is called elevator pitch, because this is the amount of time that usually you take in an elevator going from one level to another. Another option is pitch deck. It is relatively, you have more time here, around 3 to 15 minutes, but here you can use a visual aid, either PowerPoints or poster, or something that you can display and show to the audience. The audience is the funders. Remember that these are the people you're trying to convince them to buy your idea and give you funding so that you are able to develop your product further. The last one is business plan. It's usually from 20 to 100 pages. So, this all goes in a step. First, you have an elevator pitch. If your presentation, if your idea found to be suitable by the investors, they will give you another chance to present a pitch deck. If they're still convinced, then they will give you another chance to share your business plan in writing with them. And then they go over your business plan with their experts to decide whether they should fund it or not. But it's highly competitive process. For example, initially 200 to 1,000 people apply. And out of 200 to 1,000, 20 to 30 people are shortlisted. Out of those, 10 people are invited to present. And out of this, only 2 to 3 companies, they get funded. So here you can see the success rate is very low. You have to have a very competitive idea, which is current, which is latest, which is people are talking about. There is no solution for it. So choosing an idea wisely is very, very important. And who are your funders? Where you get the money from? This is the most important part. The sources of capital. I have listed 8 sources. You can use your personal capital. It's not entirely necessary. However, when you use your personal capital, it helps to convince the funders that you believe in your idea more than they do, right? So if you're not having your own money invested, they think that if do not trust your idea to invest your money into it, why should we trust to give you money for your ideas, right? So here you just have a little bit personal investment, then the friends and family, then there are tons of government and financing programs are there who fund such companies, non-profit foundations. And then you can also go to the banks for getting loan from them. However, it is discouraged for a startup company because you have no funds at the moment and you get funding for a very high interest rate. Then you go to angel investors, venture capital. I'll just talk about briefly. For example, this is here the Small Business Innovative Research, SBIR, and similarly STTR. These are the funding, very famous funding or opportunities available to the biotech entrepreneurs, and they are operated by the government. Here you can get at the most from 500,000 to $1 million over 2 years to develop, and this money is all given to you to develop your product further. There are some non-profit foundations, for example, Cystic Fibrosis Foundation, for example, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, for example, Michael J. Fox Foundation. Sometimes these foundations, they have no particular focus for any disease, depending on idea, whichever disease you're working upon. If they find it suitable, they fund it. And sometimes they have a particular focus. For example, Michael J. Fox, they only fund the Parkinson research. Something which is very important to know, you need at least $1.5 billion and 12 to 15 years to develop a product, right? And entrepreneurs, they do not get all these $1.5 billion in the very beginning when they are at the first stage of developing their company. It takes time for them, and they have to go back to funders after every stage of completion. Similarly, all this money cannot be given by only one funder. There is no way, impossible for one funder to give you all this money. This means you have to look for potential sources of funding from all the available sources. You need to exploit them. You need to explore them as much as you can. Then only you are able to develop your product further the way that you want to develop it. And there are different stages of funding, and I've shown them through this graph. Initially, you get it from family and friends, which is not more than um, 10,000 to $500,000 dollars, and then you go to accelerators, the angel funders. I'll talk about what are the angel funders, venture capitals. So, as your company is progressing, and I'm showing here from 3 to 10 years at the bottom, if you look at the x-axis, and the y-axis is showing the funding, how funding is increasing from 10,000 to $100+ million. There are different stages you need money to develop your product further, and depending on the need, depending on at what stage you are, you generate that money for your product development. Then perhaps most of you have seen those shark, we used to call this program Dragon Den. Now it is called, I think, Shark Tank. And here, these funders that you're seeing, these are the angel investors. They're called angel investors. Angel investors are the rich people in the society who have lots of money. They're making more than $200,000 or $300,000 yearly. And these are the ones who are having this money surplus and they want to invest in a business. So they are very potential investors for such adventures. You can also go to the partners. Partners mean some of the companies who are already doing something that you are doing, but a little bit different. Your goals and objectives are same. In that case, you rather than competing with them, it is better to collaborate with them. Once you get money, the next option is to develop your product. And here, I think most of you know what do I mean by developing a product. This is something that we do in the labs, in the laboratory setup. We, do the activity guided isolation. If you're isolating a compound from a plant, and then once you isolated a potential lead, then you do further experiments. You try to optimize your lead through computational drug design, using different tissue, organ, the tissue cells, and in the animal, you also do the toxicity testing for that drug in the animals to look at the potential toxic effect of that product that you're developing on different organs. I've mentioned heart, kidneys, brain, and liver, and lungs. And if everything goes good and fine, then we go for clinical trials, and there are different stages of clinical trial, 1, 2, and 3. I'm not going to go into much detail. Clinical trial includes the use of human. When you check your drug in human after clinical phase 3 and nothing found extraordinary against your product, then you are good to go in to move on to the next step. If, as the entrepreneur, you don't have any facility to develop your product further, then there are incubators and accelerators available at different universities and institutions, research institutions, funding institutions. They have this facility for the new entrepreneurs. You can communicate with them, and you can use their facilities, their resources, their equipment, their place, their material, and to develop your product and develop your idea further. While you are developing your product, you also need to have regulatory approval from the regulatory organizations. There are different organizations all over the world. Here in USA, we use FDA. In Canada is Health Canada, HC. And what they ask you that during different stages of drug development, you need to have approval from the regulatory organizations. For example, when you transition from preclinical to clinical stage, at that time you need approval from FDA. And then once you are done your phase 3 clinical trial, and now you are going to register your drug, your product as the drug, and this is the stage when you need the FDA approval. After you done FDA approval, keep in mind, and as Dr. Masood was talking about, ethical approval is also very important. Ethical mean because you are in the money making business and the money is involved, the possibility of violating the ethics is very high, right? In that case, or there are different organizations, they make sure that you are doing ethically, everything is sound. And then sometimes the institution, university have their own institutional review board or review ethics board. They make sure that you're doing everything properly and right. And similarly, when you do clinical trials, there are different standards and procedures that you have to make sure that you're meeting. If you don't, FDA, if they find out, even if your drug is approved by somehow, and if FDA realizes afterwards through their investigation that you have violated the law, then you perhaps may you have to recall your drug that you're working upon, right? So the institutional review board or the ethical approval is very important. Next is that once your drug has been made, you have got the regulatory approval. Who's going to buy your drug? In North America, and I think Europe also, you cannot buy a prescription drug directly from the pharmacy. You have to have a prescription from the physician. So now, as an entrepreneur, it is your job to communicate with the physicians, to communicate with the insurance companies, and to communicate with the coding procedure that if they cover your drug, your device, and your diagnostic or not. If not, then you have to communicate with them, convince them that what your new novel drug does, if it exists in the existing category of coding, then it's very easy for your drug to bring it under a coverage umbrella so that it can be reimbursed when physicians prescribe the medicine. And once everything is done, your prototype is ready, you coding it, you have taken care of all the background stuff. Now you can go and scale up the production of the drug in a company, at a physical facility. And these are all the steps that I've shown you already during the drug development process. But when you do at a bigger scale, larger scale, this is how it looks like. You need huge tankers, you need huge bioreactors so that you can produce millions of bottles of your drug that you're working upon in market. So this is the architect of a biotech company, and there you have to have a facility. Then there's somebody should be responsible for the documentation of all the facility, the training procedures, the procedure for doing the experiments, the supply chain team that keep an eye on the material that you're ordering coming to the company that you're using for the R&D. And there are a group of people working in the R&D department. Somebody is responsible for the formulation of the drug. Then the production team takes care of and increasing producing at the mass level. The drugs are then go to the fill finish process where they fill in the bottles. The quality control department that looks at the production of your this is in-house quality control department that looks at the quality of the drug or the medicine or the product that you're working upon is packaged, delivered through the controlled vehicles to the pharmacy, and finally to the patient. Right. And again, through this process, I also teach you about the GMP practices, that what are the good manufacturing practices that you should follow while they're working in the company, or if they are the entrepreneurs, there is facility that where they're synthesizing the drug, they have to follow certain rules and regulations to make sure that it has maintained a proper temperature, humidity, pressure, negative air pressure, positive air pressure. It has a particular supply of water, either molecule, deionized water, ultra pure water. The GLPs are being followed, the data integrity is maintained, and the good documentation practices. Finally, the in-house quality control, as I mentioned, that before FDA comes, do inspection while you're sleeping, and they find out you're violating many rules and regulations, not following the codes, and they chain your company, is better to the in-house quality control to make sure that everything is according to the standards that have been formulated by the regulatory bodies. Lastly, you want people to know you, and for that you have to launch your company or your product using different media outlet. As I mentioned in here, LinkedIn, YouTube, vlog, blog. You should have your own website, corporate website. You should give corporate presentations educating people about the product in the health sector that you have made. And finally, you list your company on the stock exchange. I have given the example here of Google. Google listed, Google actually, perhaps, the IP owned by some of the students at the Stanford University when they made it in 20, 25 years ago. In 2004, when Google was listed on the stock exchange, in just one day, it made $15.7 million. But if you look at here, the Genentech, when they went to the stock exchange second time in 99, they raised $2 billion in just one day. So that's all. This is how I conclude the journey of being in biotech entrepreneur. And these are the steps I mentioned initially, and these are the steps I try to cover briefly. With this, we conclude, and we learn the process of starting a startup biotech. I have published this course. I'm in the process of preparing a manuscript to publish this course module in the Chemical Journal of Chemical Education. In a couple more, I have given a couple more presentations also. He's a student who helped me develop these resources. I got funding from the Office of Open Learning at University of Windsor, and I'm thankful to the asset for giving me the opportunity to share my work and research with all of you. Thank you.